I do not have an answer to that, but Tony Katz might, who is with us now. What do you think?
I think that is an incredibly good summation of the conversation of what has happened right up until the point you get to, and this helps the White House. I would put forth to you in a most friendly way I could, you don't have a single bit of proof of that. I would argue the opposite, that still it's about the Biden administration that has not been able to get victories. The Biden administration has been proven wrong time and time again. Everything they want to do, they can't do. Even when we talk about Title 42 and the decision of Judge Summerhays, I think you bring up a wonderful, wonderful point worthy of discussion. It's still a conversation of the border is a mess and the Biden administration has no plan. There was a whole conversation
hold on, Tony,
about
Tony, hold on.
No plan.
47% oppose, support ending Title 42. 54% oppose ending the program. The judge just gives the White House something that 54% of Americans want and gives the White House cover with progressives and allows the media to move on from what's happening at the border. I'm thinking MSNBC and CNN no longer have to be down there when the humanitarian crisis starts at the end of May. How's that not a win for the White House?
Because two things. A, I would reject the idea that anything is a win for the White House when progressives are still going to demand an open border. So politically, you don't have a win with this part of your party that's getting ever louder. I think there's a reason Cedric Richmond has decided to leave the White House and go to the DNC after he called out the squad and called them some pretty foul names. But the other part of this conversation regarding the border is that when there was talk that the Biden administration would keep Title 42 in place because they couldn't afford not to have it in place. If you're going to get an influx of 18,000 people a day, you had the graphic up just a moment ago, 500,000 people they're expecting a month. 18,000 people a day, you can't afford it. The Biden administration will be caught not being able to put resources to the border, so they may have kept it in place anyway.
Let's be clear. They don't even have the resources to deal with what's happening now at the border, and as we talk to folks down there. Right. A number of Republicans are suing the Republican governors. We had a Republican congressman from Texas on last night talking about why you keep Title 42, which is a COVID-based emergency protocol, in place when Republicans say, and rightfully so, that COVID is over. Take a listen.
We would just simply argue that COVID is the emergency. There's cases of measles, smallpox, other infectious diseases that have long since been eradicated in the United States that have reared their ugly head.
Politically good for Republicans to be talking about immigrants who bring disease. It feels like the 1910s are calling.
I would disagree about that in that there are realities happening at the border. And part of our problem is that we have a political party, in the Democratic Party, that won't talk about those realities. All they'll talk about is how dare you put these people in cages, although nothing has changed from the Trump administration to the Biden administration about how we handle these things, except for the fact that Representative Ocasio-Cortez doesn't go to the border and cry when you have Biden in office. Well, I'm only making the argument that politically nothing really has changed, even though your summation is factual.
All right, fair enough. The voters will tell us whether you or I are right, my friend. We'll talk soon, all right?
You got it. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.